Hello, my name is Tisha and I'm going to be giving my self-concept bag speech. This bag represents the three different parts of my self-concept. The front side will talk about my presented self. In the middle of the bag, I will talk about my perceived self, and on the back discusses my desired self. So, for the front, this is my presenting self. These are the things the face that I put out to the world that I hope people think of me. When they think of me, they'll think of these things. The first picture I have is of a pretty buff guy, and that represents the word strong or capable. I hope people see me as very strong, very even-keeled emotionally, not given to ups and downs, and very capable to do the work I have to do, very strong. I don't need other people's help. The second thing I have is a cross, and that would stand for very traditionally religious. And to me, that encompasses having Republican beliefs or very high moral standards. The third thing I have is this little ensemble of a fork and a paper napkin, and I have the word perfection down as in how perhaps Bree from Desperate Housewives would view perfection. I try to keep a very clean house, a very organized house. Everything has its place. I would have a fresh baked chocolate chip cookie if you happen to stop by to offer you. So that is one thing I definitely try to have put out there. The last thing I have down are the words dedicated and committed. And I hope people see that I'm a very dedicated wife, a dedicated sister, dedicated mother, dedicated friend, daughter, all of the above. I do that by things like babysitting for friends or family, or having an ear to listen if somebody's having a problem, things like that. So onto the middle of the bag, I have a list of my perceived self. And these are things that in moments of quiet introspection, I can really see about myself that I don't necessarily want people to know about me. First thing I have down is the word insecure, and that's because in many areas of my life I feel very insecure, about the choices I've made leading up to where I am today. Example would be, perhaps a stay-at-home mom versus a career. Insecure about, how I look or my capabilities of doing certain things, my even how I am a wife or a mother or a friend, am I really doing these things well? The second word I have down is fickle, and that's because I can be very happy 1 second with my life or how things are going, and very unhappy the next second and wish things were very different. And that lends itself to a strong element of discontentedness. The third thing I have down is sensitive, and even though I try to put on a very strong front, I'm actually quite sensitive emotionally and will get my feelings hurt very easily, but I just try to hide that and not let people see that. The final thing I have down is the word secretive, and that's because in reality I don't really want people to know how I feel about many different subjects or what's going on in my life. What I'm going through, I don't really want them to know. On to the back of the bag. This is my desired self. These items represent the parts of me that are actually true and that I do wish people would know because I feel they would help in my communication with my current relationships. The first thing I have is this little sign, and it says, "Live green, think green." And in reality, I have a very quote-unquote democratic heart. I love, all things green, global thinking, would absolutely love to live in a solar house, would be definitely wonderful. The second picture I have is just a piece of art, and that represents my creative side. I love art, I love music, I love writing, and hopefully someday I'll be able to publish something. The third concept I have down is just this lady, and she's just putting trash in a trash bag and a little dust mop. And I have the words tons of prep time. So perhaps you see my house and it's clean and organized and I have everything in its place, but What you don't know is that hours before I was frantically running around cleaning and putting the cookies in the oven and putting everything where it's supposed to be. So it takes quite a bit of work to get to my house to the place where I feel it's actually presentable. That's what's happening. And the last words I have down are accepting advice. And I just hope to let my friends know, my relationships, that when I'm talking with people, my sisters, my friends, that if they're offering me a piece of advice for a question or an issue I'm having in my own life, or even if they're just offering, offering advice on what's working for them, something that's going really well for them, and perhaps I should try it, I think I tend to make them feel like I don't need that advice, or I'm very resistant to it, or it's just not going to work for me at this time. But in reality, I'm thinking about those things, and I'll go home and I'll mull it over, and very often I'll put those things to work in my own life and try out those pieces of advice. So those are some of the 3 different aspects of the perception of myself, and thank you very much for listening.